This is the Horse Radio Network.
I'm Stacy Westfall, and you're listening to the Dressage radio show, the Western Dressage episode. This is episode 563 of the Dressage radio show on the Horse Radio Network. Coming up on today's show, we're discussing the topic of relaxation. I talk with Joanne Coy about relaxation or tension as it's seen from the judge's view, and Marsha Hartford Sapp gives us some training tips for increasing relaxation at home and at shows. And in this intro part, I actually have Diney Swanson, who is joining me today. She's the executive director of the WDAA, and I wanted to have you on today, Diney, to talk a little bit about some of the changes you guys have made due to this global pandemic. So, Diney, can you tell us all what WDAA stands for and a little bit about what your role is?
Well, WDAA stands for Western Dressage Association of America, and I'm the executive director. We're a pretty, well, obviously we're a very new association, and we're pretty small. We all work remotely. So actually, working from home,
you were ahead of
any
curve.
Change whatsoever. Yeah, it hadn't been any change for us at all. But we've certainly had to get creative and think on the fly with what's going on right now in the world.
Yeah, and I saw online, and I really would like to know a little bit more about it, that you guys have decided to offer online shows. Can you explain a little bit about how those decisions were made, or, anything about it really? Because it's pretty much, I'm new to the idea.
Well, we are too. The online shows have been going on for quite a while, and we had been approached years ago about recognizing them. And we were, as a board, hesitant to do that because it's impossible to enforce the rules. They can't be USEF or US Equestrian licensed. So we just kind of backburnered it because it was just going to be too hard to make sure that everything was going correctly and they were following our criteria and our rules. And then, when all of this started breaking loose, we had just had a board meeting and kind of, discussed how interesting this is all going to be. And then we had an emergency board call a couple days later and really decided that we've got to do something to help people stay engaged with Western Dressage and, give them something to do with their horses. Mm-hmm. So the board decided to go ahead and offer WDA recognition for online shows as long as they met our criteria mm-hmm. for recognized shows. So if you go on to the www.westerndressageassociation.org website, which is the world's longest website address, and you go to show recognition information, you'll see a whole list of why it's a good idea to have shows WDA recognized and how to go about doing it. And it's pretty simple. The main criteria is that judges need to be USEF Western Dressage licensed judges. Mm-hmm. And then there's some other criteria, but we had to create online criteria also. So that's all on that webpage.
Yeah, and, I noticed some of that. That was interesting.
Yeah, we just decided it was the time, obviously, and it was the right thing to do to help people out. And they've been really excited. We have several that have been recognized and extremely well attended. So it was the right decision to make.
Yeah, when they're recognized, what does that count for, and what does that not count for? As far as, if I remember right, it counts for lifetime points, but not for something else. Is that true?
Yeah. So Yeah. A WDAA member can gain Horse Lifetime Points and Awards program points at a show recognized show. So we call it for short WorldPAP, and it's our lifetime points program for horses. And it's not a race. It's not a year-end thing. It just follows your horse through their progression, through the levels and the tests.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you show at an online show, you can submit those scores that you receive to WDAA and get points. They are half points. They're we don't award full points because it's not an in-person show.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore they bits can't be checked properly. And, from what I understand, and I haven't done this, and I'm sure you have seen it, that in-person judging is a lot different than judging a video.
Yeah.
Perspective gets kind of messed up. And so that's why we went with the half points for online shows.
Yeah, that's. I'm sitting here and I've got the website open, and it's fascinating what you guys had to think through about. The videos have to be filmed in landscape, and you have to be able to leave the audio in, so that you can tell, and the natural sound has to be behind it, and and then you're like, oh yeah, that would be so that you can't have the coaching, and then one continuous recording. So you guys put a lot of work into figuring out how to make this accessible. And then I thought it was really interesting too, interviewing judges. And I'm going to just say it this way. Like, I totally didn't even, when I saw the show system kind of go down, from my perspective, I thought about like not being able to go show and the impact on the person showing. It wasn't my first thought about, oh my goodness, like judges have their career. A lot of them are judging every weekend, and that just boom.
Yeah.
And you guys are taking into account, like, it is awesome. Obviously, the competitor, the horse, the at home, but it's also nice that some of these judges are going to be able to, be involved in doing something. And I think this is going to be really interesting. All the things we see that come out of this pandemic are going to be interesting to see what pieces. There will be some valuable, good things that we can carry forward. So I can see how some of the work you guys have put in here is potentially going to, pay off down the road, for whether it's used exactly like this forever or whether it morphs into something. I'm still holding out hope that we've got good things coming out of the pandemic. Yeah.
Absolutely. And first of all, I need to give credit to the hosts of these online shows, because we went to them. We don't, we don't put on these shows. We recognize them. So to set up our criteria, we went to them and asked them, for their suggestions, and they were all great, very forthcoming with advice and all that. So we're still working on it, and the list of criteria will be fairly fluid, because we're going to be adding, little tips on videography and all that too. So we're learning along with everybody else, and that's an advantage of being a young organization is, we can be fluid.
Yeah.
We can be adaptable. And then the judges, not as many judges are going to be working right now, even with the online shows, but it is giving them an opportunity to judge, not only to make money, but because they love judging.
Right.
I mean, they love judging these horses, and it's a great outlet for them to keep their minds in the right place. As long, along with the exhibitors and the horses. Keep everybody engaged.
Exactly. I mean, they're such a valuable resource. It's my favorite part. There's a lot of things I like about going to the shows, but I really, really value that feedback. And so I'm glad that they're able to continue. They spend so much time getting their education and getting their hours. I mean, I attended the judges seminar so that I could learn, but I didn't do a fraction of what it takes. And it's just, the more you know about what it takes to become and earn and continue on with the judging system, the more I'm just like, thank you for doing this for us. It's amazing.
It is a lot of work, and it's not something that any of them go into lightly.
No, I don't think you could with the number of criteria and hoops you have to jump through. But
exactly.
Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'd love to have you back on with upcoming episodes to keep us kind of in the loop with anything in the news with WDAA and the Western Dressage Association and everything going on there. So, thanks for joining me.
My pleasure. Yeah, thank you.
This Nutrition Minute is brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products, the company that simplifies your search for research-proven nutritional supplements at kppusa.com.
Did you know that easy keepers and horses on restricted diets are often at risk for vitamin and mineral deficiencies? Most easy keepers are maintained on hay, and some get a few handfuls of grain a day, and most of these horses get little to no green grass. Diets that don't include significant levels of green grass or recommended amounts of fortified concentrates just don't supply enough vitamins and minerals. Many horse folks don't realize that hay alone, even high-quality green hay, is not an adequate source of many vitamins. For example, when grass is cut and dried for hay, the vitamins quickly lose their potency. 70% of the vitamin E found in grass is lost in the first week after it is cut for hay. One way to ensure that your special needs horse is getting all the vitamins and minerals he needs is to add a vitamin and mineral supplement to his diet. A well-balanced supplement will provide the nutrients your horse requires without adding unwanted calories, starches, and sugars. Microphase, made by Kentucky Performance Products, is a vitamin and trace mineral supplement that bridges the gap in your feeding program. With Microphase, your horse receives adequate and balanced vitamin and mineral nutrition without unwanted calories or other ingredients. The minerals in Microphase have been chelated, a process that protects minerals during digestion and increases their absorption in the intestine. Microphase provides vitamins such as vitamin E in a natural form, so your horse receives optimal results from this supplement.
This Nutritional Minute has been brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products. You can find all of their terrific products at kppusa.com.
Joining me for the judge's view, I have Joanne Coy, who is a large R Western Dressage judge and an L graduate in traditional dressage judging. And she is from Michigan. And we're going to discuss relaxation. So, Joanne, when you're judging dressage, either one, can you explain to me what you're looking for, or maybe what doesn't show up and that would fall under the category of relaxation? Because I'm kind of working my way up through the training pyramid and I see relaxation on there. How does that reflect from the judge's point of view?
Relaxation is a very important element of a horse's training, as you know. Mm-hmm. And when I look at a horse in the show ring, one of my prime concerns is whether or not the horse is relaxed. Because, as you know, particularly in Western dressage, our big focus is harmony. So if the horse is tense and upset, obviously there's a lack of harmony. So one of the things I look for pretty much right away is if the horse is stretching to the contact, in other words, reaching for the rider's hand. And in so doing, in my opinion, the horse is saying, hey, I know you've got my back. Let's do this together. And I hope we can be a team throughout this performance. So when the horse is stretching into the contact, it doesn't look like they're forced into a frame. It looks like they're, working in a partnership. I look for things like whether or not the horse's back is swinging. As a trainer and a rider, of course, when I work with students, I'm always looking at the area just behind the saddle where there's some swinging and the muscles are relaxed. And so even when I watch horses in the ring, that's an area of focus of my attention. And I like to see the shoulders swinging freely forward, the horse is reaching, as I said, into the contact. And I like to see some softness throughout the back. And, interestingly enough, that carries over into the horse's face as well. I mean, I look at the horse's eye when he goes past the judge's booth. If he looks terrified, obviously, he's not feeling comfortable with the environment and whether or not the rider has his back.
Mm-hmm.
So when the horse passes by my judge's booth, I look at the horse's eye and their facial expression. I mean, I look at the whole horse to evaluate whether or not the horse is feeling comfortable with what's going on. And I know that there are, things happening in the show ring that cause the horse tension and concern. For example, at the World Show, the horse is asked to go into an indoor arena. At many shows, the horse is asked to go into an indoor arena, and sometimes leaving his friends to do so. And that's worrisome to a horse. But again, if the horse feels that the rider is going to take care of him through the performance, then he can maintain a more relaxed demeanor, and that's important, and also an element of harmony. Mm-hmm. When I'm looking at gaited horses in Western dressage, if there's a lack of relaxation, and even in walk, trot, canter horses or walk, jog, lope horses, if there's a tense horse and there's no relaxation, it can often show up in the rhythm of the gait. I think that's most often true in gaited horses. The tension or lack of relaxation can cause a gaited horse to pace or just have an irregular rhythm in their gait. So that's another thing I look for, depending on if I'm judging gaited or non-gaited horses.
I love that you included that, because I don't know if you're doing this on purpose, but I'm sitting here with the training pyramid in front of me, and you've talked about connection, which is just above relaxation, and you've talked about rhythm, which is just below. So you've sort of encompassed relaxation you've kind of built it in your conversation with a hug around like connection and rhythm, which I am gathering from you is creating that relaxation that's so neat that you just did that with, just natural conversation. So can you tell me just a little bit about what we might see different watching, let's say, like an intro level horse versus like a third level horse showing? Like when you're looking at your relaxation, but at the same time, it seems almost like as you go higher up, you're also asking for a higher degree of performance. How does that still play in?
Okay. So when a horse is being trained through the levels, what we're looking at is a little bit more of an uphill balance, of course, as they're going from training to first to level 2 and so on. And that involves a little bit more collection. We're not looking for collection at level 1, of course, or basic, but as they go up the training levels, there is more balancing back onto the horse's hindquarters, thus elevating the front end just a little bit. And a horse can't really become fluidly engaged from back to front if there's tension throughout the body. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't have the muscles become contracted. They have to become contracted in order to push off and have some, push power from the hind end. Mm-hmm. But if they're tense and anxious, and just like with humans, things tend to lock up, and all of that energy gets deflected in the wrong direction. So even as we're asking our horses to go in a more collected manner, they still have to be relaxed enough to accept the aids, to feel what it is the rider, the subtle changes that the rider is making to get the horse to work more fluidly, what we call the throughness from back to front, and use that engagement to, push off and carry themselves, and have a little bit more impulsion. Mm-hmm. So you can't have, you really can't have much if you don't have relaxation. Mm-hmm. And that's why the training pyramid is built the way it is. It looks like things are done in a sequential manner. but they are so interrelated. I've often thought that if someone were to literally recreate the wheel of the training pyramid, if they put these elements in a circle, like I don't know, spokes of a bicycle, and then the hub of the bicycle would be collection, maybe. But I always tell the people that I work with, don't think of these as you have to have one and then you have the next one and so on. They all are interrelated.
Yeah.
And relaxation is really, really important.
Yeah. I can totally see how you could reinvent this as a wheel. That is an interesting concept. So is there, from the judge's point of view, is there an area that riders, let's say a horse goes in there and it's not perfectly relaxed, but it's also not super tense everywhere. If you get that horse that's kind of in the middle where it's like a skillful rider could help not trigger tension, I guess I'm going to phrase it that way. Is there a set of transitions or how they use the corner? Is there something you frequently see the rider ride poorly in a test that almost causes a lack of relaxation, almost causes tension? Is it an upward transition, a downward transition, the way they use the corners? Like, what would you say? Any advice for people showing? I think the biggest thing that riders need to do in order to maintain relaxation in their horse throughout the test is to be sure and prepare the horse for the transitions, the upward and downward transitions. That's why there's so many transitions in tests, because we hope that we can, signal our horse that either a lope is coming or a jog is coming or whatever, and not do it like screeching brakes, not do it so suddenly that the horse is wondering, wait, why was she so adamant about me doing that right then and there? And the sad thing is we do have to do things right then and there because we're in a test and we have to do it at a letter. But the lower levels give us the luxury of having to do the transition between letters, and that's why they're created that way. So I think it's really important that the rider develop their technique of how they're going to signal the horse that something's coming up. Of course, we talk about half halts and engaging your horse a little bit more, asking the horse to get ready. Something's about to happen. But if you don't prepare your horse for those transitions, it shows. And that's what really separates the riders from the ones who need to work a little bit more as their horse's trainer and not just their horse's passenger. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I know that, like, when my slightly higher level horse got injured and I haven't ridden for a month, and so I haven't ridden her for a month, but I was riding my two younger ones, and when I got back on and rode her for the first time, I was like, wow, I forgot how much more accurate. Like, you almost forget, like, that's right, you can actually get this exactly in the step, where with the younger ones, it's like the youngest one I need like a whole ramping up and a whole ramping down, and the one in between, I'm like, I'm kind of happy if I'm, if I got 2 or 3 steps ramping up or 2 or 3 steps ramping down, and then I get back on the one that's got so much more training, and I was like, oh, that's right, I forgot this can actually be like in the step that I want it to.
It has to happen now, right?
Yeah, and so it is a fascinating concept. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Is there anything else you'd like to add to riders before we let go, or where can people find you online?
I would like to add that when a rider's doing a test, if one part of the test goes not so well, let it go. Go on to the next part. Don't feel that your whole test is trashed because of one bad transition. Give your horse a chance to shake it off. You shake it off and carry on. Like the sign says, keep calm and carry on, and do that within your test.
That's great advice.
That you give your horse a chance, because horses are very forgiving. So you need to be really forgiving too. Yes. Yeah. And,
that's really great advice, because, coming from some other disciplines like I have, you really can lose it all in one step. And I'm not saying that, maybe obviously if you've got, tight competition in dressage, I'm sure you're going to have some influence like that, but it has seemed overall slightly more forgiving because there are so many movements.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
I didn't understand that the math of it changed the degree that a mistake or whatever you want to call that moment, I didn't, that's great advice because I didn't realize at first because I was so used to one bad step making a huge difference that I think that is great advice for anybody coming from a different.
That's right, because a test can have 15 movements and you might get a 3 or a 2.5 on one of those movements. For hopefully it's not times 2, a coefficient of 2. And so that's just one movement. Yeah. Oh.
Well, that's awesome. So you judge. So if people want to find you online, where would they go to reach out to you?
I do not have my own web page or Facebook page or whatever. I mean, I'm on Facebook. They can find me on Facebook, but and also on the USDF website, licensed or officials and the USEF licensed officials. They can find my contact information there.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for joining me, and I will look forward to seeing you at a show down the road when those start up again.
Yes, I hope to do that as well. Yeah, thank you for calling me. It was great to talk to you.
This week's dressage training tip is brought to you by Total Saddle Fit, home of the shoulder relief girth at TotalSaddleFit.com.
For today's trainer tip, I have Marsha Hartford Sapp, and Marsha is a professional horse trainer in Tallahassee, Florida. It's really cool because not only does she have multiple world championships in the USEF Western Dressage, but she's also a USDF gold medalist in classical dressage. This is my goal. And she's a multiple time winner of the Extreme Mustang Makeover. And she owns Cobra, the Mustang, the Breyer model, and the horse who holds titles in both disciplines. I'm super excited to be talking to you, Marsha. And I would love to talk to you today about relaxation and how you see that as a part of the training process. And especially with your diverse, Extreme Mustang Makeover and classical and Western dressage, I want to know all of it. The only cap we have is the time limit, but we might have to have you on multiple times. So anyway, back to focus. What are some of the tips you have for people who are training their horse and they want to make sure they maintain relaxation as they're walking into the show pen to show in Western dressage?
Yeah, what I tell my students about relaxation is that it starts at home. And relaxation starts from the time that you put your halter on your horse. Everything that we do with horses has to create relaxation and an ability to be receptive to training. Horses can be trained so many different ways. We know there's so many different methods of training horses, so many different viewpoints, but the bottom of the training period and at the end of the day, nothing is better than receptiveness for training than the horse being relaxed and being able to receive the information. So when we go out to catch our horses, the first step is relaxation at the side of the halter, relaxation about the halter being put on. The moment you are interacting with your horse, you are starting your training session for the day. So we want the horses to walk up to the handler, to drop their head into the halter. We want the horse to walk quietly up to the cross ties or to the barn. And everything that you do with your horse leading up from the time you step your foot in your saddle, you're training your horse and you're setting your horse up for its work that day. I give an analogy all the time. Sometimes when we work in corporate world, which I have, and you have these very large meetings where they talk about things that may be unpleasant, they set up the meeting with coffee and donuts and pleasantries. And, they want people to be engaged and relaxed when they come into that room. And that space is what you're creating for the horse too. So you want to make sure that everything that you do leading to the saddling is about having the horse be relaxed.
That's awesome.
When we get on our horses, we want them to stand quietly at the mounting block. We ask them to drop their heads. We ask them to stand quietly. All of those things make a difference in those first steps leading into your time into the saddle.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's so if you let's say you have somebody unload, they decide to haul in for a lesson, they unload the horse from the trailer and the horse is, head up in the air, whinnying, circling around them, and they've shown up and they want a Western dressage lesson. Where do you start?
So if they're coming in and the horse isn't familiar with the environment, and we all have to have experience with this because we have to go to shows and our horses have to be good off the property. So the moment that horse steps off the trailer, I'll instruct my student to just stand there with the horse, place its hand on its pole or on the top part of the neck, and ask the horse to drop its head in relaxation. And then take it into the arena and allow the horse to walk around with its head low. So when we don't allow the horses to be tourists, is what I call it. I don't want the horse to whinny and look around and walk circles around me. We're not on a tour. When you're going down the center line, you don't want the horse looking at C and B and E and every other letter. The horse has to be focused. So I have them just lead the horse around, but lead the horse with its head in a straight line, the horse's head down, the horse not being really allowed to look around and create its own stories about its environment, but to really become tuned into its handler. And then once the horse can walk around the ring a time or two with its head down and in straight alignment, not counterbent looking at the outside or circling around the handler, then it's time to saddle them. And, sometimes an appropriate concentrated lunge on a lunge line where we're thinking about riding the horse from the ground on the lunge line is sometimes super useful too. I have a rule here at my facility that we don't lunge horses to tire them out. That's not what we do. We lunge horses to ride them from the ground first. So everything the horse does on a lunge line is what you would expect the horse to do under saddle. Walk quietly with its head down, trot quietly with its head down, canter on the correct lead without counter bending. All of that is, homework. It's homework from the ground to create relaxation, but lunging is not to just race your horse around on a lunge line, but to ride it from the ground first. So those are good initial steps, not only to start your training session or to get your horse acclimated to traveling, but just to create a positive way to start your session that day.
Yeah.
Those are really important. Yeah.
My favorite at the moment is like the tourists. They're not allowed to be tourists. I love that phrasing. I've never heard it like that before. And that's awesome. So
and it's not what they're there for. They're not there to be a tourist. They're there for a job and to be relaxed and be with the handler. They can't detach from you.
Right. So now let's take it a step up because I think I see where you're going with the at-home work. So let's say that you have done some, let's just say that you've done some video conference calls with somebody, like video lessons or something like that, because we're entering this strange time when strange things are happening. So in this make-believe situation, let's say that so that means you kind of know somebody from a distance and they're going to go to a horse show. And at what point would you recommend, like if somebody shows up at a horse show, is there a point where you say like, you need to go take this horse and maybe you don't show it? How do you walk people up through gaining that experience? Like you just said, they have to get used to traveling, which they could do by going to lessons. But let's say that they go to the first horse show. How do you coach somebody through, like, maybe you don't get on today, or maybe you ride this test differently. Like, can you talk me through some of that?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I train young horses. This is my specialty here at Southern Oaks. We train a lot of horses that are young, not broke to ride, and introduce into the show world. And we definitely have a strategy for that. A lot of times, if you are able to go to a show that's multiple days, like it's a Saturday, Sunday show, and you can arrive on Friday, that is the best setup for these young horses rather than, traveling to a local show, showing up, trying to get in a hurry and, get on for your ride time and go and show. It's like there's just so much stuff that happens with that young horse. So if you have the ability to go to a show that's multiple days, that the horse can spend the night, that's the best way to set it up, at least initially, for your young horses. So if I have a young horse and we're going to a show, I'll arrive on Friday and unload the horse, and I immediately stick them in a stall. I don't lead them around right off the trailer because they're going to be amped up. They're going to be looking around. They've already traveled. I take the horse off and I put it in a stall. I put it in its own bedroom where it can feel relaxed, and it can eat hay, and it can drink, and it can go to the bathroom, and it can feel like it's a similar environment to home. And then I'll unload the other horses, and I'll unload the equipment and let that horse settle. And I'll look in the stall and say, is this horse eating grain? Is this horse eating hay? Is this horse drinking water? All those things are checked off. Okay, the horse is doing great. Or I can look in the stall and see, oh, the horse isn't eating hay. It's looking a little concerned. And then the same steps would apply. I would walk it around the grounds, but not to quote unquote show the horse everything where it's looking right and looking left and looking around, but I'll walk it around and ask it to walk with its head down, and ask it to walk in a straight line, and ask it to back up, and ask it to pivot, and, do things with the horse to engage it with me. And then I may tack up the horse and ride it around quietly to walk or trot, or I might lunge the horse riding it from the ground, not to lunge it to tire it, riding it from the ground. But doing all of these things that hopefully we've set it up at home so it understands the program. And I don't ask for a whole lot the first day. I don't have ambitions that the horse has to perform. I just have ambitions that the horse has to relax and accept the environment. And then if, again, we're fortunate enough that it's a multiple day show, Saturday I'll do the same thing and make a decision. Is this horse ready to show? Yes, it is. We're showing, or no, it's not. And be prepared to scratch a class. And rather than doing something that's an unpleasant experience for the horse. But I always tell people to be prepared to walk the horse around, always be prepared to do less than the horse is doing at home when riding. If I'm showing, let's say, a second level horse, on Friday, it doesn't have to be a second level horse. It has to be a training level horse. That's it.
Yep.
On Saturday, it's going to be a first level horse. The last day, okay, it's a second level horse again. But we expect less than what we're doing at home in order to make it a good experience for the horse, and to be able to work around those things to create relaxation and not have the horse be stressed about performance, because that does happen with horses.
Yeah.
People will get to the show and maybe they've had a training level horse at home, but they want to do a first level test. That's just not the best way to set them up in order to have relaxation at the shows. Have lower ambitions. Yeah,
that's great advice. Now, let's jump to a much more advanced situation. So let's say that you've got a horse and rider that are working for like an upper level. Maybe they're doing fourth level in Western dressage or something like that. Sometimes I think when you sit and watch the upper level, especially as you watch higher level with traditional, how would you describe it for somebody watching that is currently riding first level or below? How would you describe the feeling of relaxation during a test that looks like it has such, so much collection asked from the horse that maybe the spectator is not necessarily seeing the same thing that you're feeling? Do you understand what I'm asking here? Because okay.
So, what you're saying is that the test looks like it's full of energy, right?
Yes.
Controlled energy.
Yes.
And controlled energy could be movement through the back and the connection of the horse's back to the rider's feet. And all of those things will parlay into these wonderful advanced movements and advanced things that horses are able to do because the rider is able to go through the basic training skill first. If you go to the warm-up pen and you watch these level 4 horses go around, or these upper level dressage horses go around, what you see the riders doing first? They're stretching the horses. The horses are doing a free walk. The horses are stretching in the trot. The horses are going long and low. They're lifting the back. They're creating long, loose muscles so that when the rider brings them back up, those back muscles are still relaxed through the warm-up, but the horse can be more collected and it can be relaxed because the back muscles are not tight and the horse is receptive to the rider's seat and leg aches asking it to go forward. In those upper level tests, it does look like the horses are moving quite forward, and they're collected, and they have a lot of energy, but they're also very finely listening to the rider because they're relaxed enough to. A relaxed horse cannot hear you every stride. It just doesn't happen because there's outside, a horse that's not relaxed can't hear you. A horse that's tense has noise, has noise in its head. It's like, oh, there's a judge at sea, and oh, there's this person doing this, and oh, there's a horse doing that. They can't listen to the rider every stride. A relaxed horse can because they're very clear. And that's always what we're striving for. So when you're watching those horses, you watch them and see, are they listening every stride? Are they receptive? Are they able to understand the rider, or are their noises getting in the way? Is their distractions getting in the way, which is tension. Tension is very distracting to horses, and that feeling of tightness through the back. So it's all about, that preparation in the show pen that you can go and watch all of these advanced riders do, and you will see all of them do it.
Right. That is a beautiful description that put it into words very nicely. Thank you. So as we wrap up, is there anything you'd like to share for, the listeners as far as possibly, either just ways that you want them to mentally approach, or even physical exercises that you could recommend? Kind of anything come to mind?
I really think that the relaxation always starts at home from the moment you go and get your horse. I love working horses from the ground and riding them from the ground. I think it's always a super important exercise, and you learn so much from your horse. We spend a lot of time long lining horses here at Southern Oaks, and a lot of the times it's very simple. We have a 50-foot round pen so that the horses never get to the end of our lines where we're not really struggling to keep up with the horses. You don't have to run behind your horses to long line horses. You can do it from a round pen. We spend a long time long lining our horses so the horses understand inside bend and outside rein and turning and stopping and flexing. And you really are riding from the ground because you have a feeling through each line to each side of the horse to be able to really minutely feel things and see things. You see the horse's back move. You see these changes happen. You see the neck change in the horse. And all of this stuff on the ground really is so educational for the rider and horse both. But I really urge people to try those things, to do riding from the ground as well as riding from the saddle. Because you will learn so much about your horse, and your horse will learn so much about you, and it always creates just more information that's shared in between horse and rider. And just setting the horse up at home and not having big ambitions when you go to the shows. Slow is fast. Slow is always fast, and you see these great riders, turn out level 4 horses for Western dressage or Grand Prix horses by the time the horses are 10. Because they understand that slow is fast, and they've done all the homework, and these horses just make such incredible partners. I watch these horses. I've been training and showing horses for decades now, like you have, and I'm still amazed every time I go to a horse show and I watch horses that they do the things that they do. It just blows my mind, that we can ride these horses and they do these amazing things from very small cues. And it's just such a joy and a thing of beauty. And I'm always filled with amazement about these horses, and it's always from thoughtful horsemanship. So I always urge people to take time to do those things, and you'll just be amazed how quickly the horse can progress.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Now, if somebody wants to find out more about you, your program, and the things you're doing, where can they find you online?
We do some social media on my Facebook page, which is just my name, Marsha Hartford Sapp. And we post some training stuff and horses that we're working with, and some of the projects that we're working on. So Facebook is always a great way to follow what we're doing. I do have a website, southernoaksequestrian.com. And we always welcome a phone call. If you have any questions or ideas about horses or things you want to share, we're always here. We're always working. We're always riding.
Very nice. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, you are so welcome. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Every I would say probably every 6 months, I pull up that great video of your horse and the bareback bridleless ride that you did that one year. And I'm always so inspired by that. That's always the creation that I want to do with my horses. So I constantly watch it and love it that other people love it too. And, you know, it was such a great thing for people to see that it's something to inspire to and something that you can do with horses.
Well, thank you. And I have watched more than my fair share of you and Cobra. When I was getting ready to do Western Dressage, I kept watching video after video after video. So thank you for putting out the videos, because that was helpful when I was reading a test and going, I do not know what I'm supposed to do, but look, I can find Marsha doing it. So I'm going to watch and try to figure out what this is. So
Cobra was one of the founding horses of USEF Western Dressage. He was at the very first recognized show in the United States, and he was the very first horse in the United States to do the new level 4 tests, which are the highest level tests we are offering currently. And I hope that I can continue to be involved with it. It was a real privilege to be involved in the beginning of a new sport, because that doesn't happen in everyone's lifetime.
Yeah.
So it was super cool to be able to do that and to incorporate my 3 Strikes unadoptable wild Mustang in it, and to be able to show the world this great horse and this great sport that we have now.
Totally. And I'm going to have you back on, because I want to do an entire full-length interview with you on different breeds and how you see them in different, like you said, like how do you take a 3 Strikes Mustang and go do everything that you've done with him. So I'm hopeful to have you back on in an upcoming episode where we can tackle a completely different subject. And yeah, that'll be fun.
That would be fantastic.
Well, thanks again.
You are so welcome.
Well, Total Saddle Fit has the cinch that you've been looking for your Western Dressage saddle. The shoulder relief cinch actually changes the position and angle of the billets to prevent the saddle tree from interfering with the shoulder. The center of the cinch is set forward to sit in the horse's natural girth groove, while the sides of the cinch are cut back to meet the billets 2 inches behind where the horse's natural girth groove lies. This brings the latigos from angling forward to becoming perpendicular to the ground, which reduces the saddle's tendency to be pulled forward into the shoulders. With horses that have shoulder interference without angled billets, it simply moves the billets back to keep the saddle further away from the shoulders. The secondary benefit to this shape is the cutback at the elbows. This gives more room for elbow movement as well and prevents galls in the elbow area. You can find the shoulder relief cinch at TotalSaddleFit.com. That's TotalSaddleFit.com.
Thanks again to Cindy, Joanne, and Marsha for joining me on today's show. In next month's episode, we'll be discussing contact and connection. If you're interested in hearing more from me, I have a podcast. You can find it on your podcast player by searching Stacy Westfall Horse Podcast. You can also find my private Western Dressage Facebook group at Western Dressage with Stacy Westfall. And I have a YouTube series that followed my Trail to the World show, to the Western Dressage World show last year. And you can find that on my YouTube channel, StacyWestfall.com. Stacy Westfall and YouTube. And you can find our show notes to the links and today's guests on the website, dressageradio.com. Like us on Facebook, just search for Dressage Radio Show. And don't forget to check out all the other shows on Horse Radio Network at horseradionetwork.com.